The latest whispers out of Montecito are downright explosive. Meghan Markle is said to be in full meltdown mode, caught up in a bitter blame game where she's pointing the finger squarely at Prince Harry for the collapse of their carefully built empire, while key staff flee, and their marriage hangs on the edge of total collapse. Just yesterday, on February 10th, the tabs lit up with reports of a mega meltdown that's got everyone talking. Professional humiliations piling up, old shadows of bullying creeping back, friends vanishing into thin air, and Harry quietly aching for the England he left behind. It's the kind of drama that makes you wonder if 2026 is finally the year everything unravels for the Sussexes. Hey everyone, let's sit down and really get into this because the details coming out right now are too juicy to ignore. If you've been following along even a little, you know things have been rocky for Harry and Meghan for a while, but these fresh reports from places like Radar Online and The List are painting a picture of absolute chaos behind those Montecito gates. Sources close to the couple, people who supposedly know what's really going on, are saying Meghan is overwhelmed, lashing out, and pinning it all on Harry. She's apparently convinced that he's the reason their grand plans aren't working out, that he's not stepping up to manage the business side of their life the way she needs him to. One insider put it bluntly. Meghan's in full meltdown mode, blaming everyone around her for her troubles, especially Harry. And the people nearby are genuinely worried she's losing it. And can we talk about the timing? This all blows up right after a string of high-profile staff exits that have left their operation looking like it's on life support. First, there's James Holt, their longtime executive director at the Archewell Foundation. This guy has been with them practically from the beginning, 5 solid years as the highest-paid aide, the one steering their charity work, the longest-serving member of their inner circle. He announced he's stepping down, saying it's time for his family to head back to London after all these years in LA. On the surface, it sounds polite and professional. He even thanked Harry and Meghan for the opportunities and talked about passing the baton with pride. But come on. When someone that loyal and that central suddenly decides to pack up and move across the ocean, you have to wonder what's really behind it. Sources are whispering that Archewell is basically being shuttered in its current form, shrinking down to almost nothing, with donations drying up and the whole thing feeling more like a rebrand than a thriving foundation. Then there's Meredith Maines, their chief U.S. publicist, or should I say former publicist. She's the latest in a long, long line, reportedly the 11th PR person they've gone through in just a few years. She started less than a year ago, and poof, she's out too, with her departure coming right on the heels of some awkward drama involving the Kardashians and birthday photos that apparently became the final straw. Again, the official line is that her work is concluded and she's helping with the transition into the new year. But when you lose your head of communications that fast, especially someone brought in to handle the big stuff, it screams trouble. These aren't random junior assistants bailing. These are top-level people, the ones who were supposed to keep the Sussex brand shining. And now, with both Holt and Maines heading for the door at basically the same time, insiders are saying this is the tipping point that's pushed Meghan over the edge. You can almost picture it. All these professional hits coming one after another, the empire they built after leaving the royal family starting to crack, and Meghan, instead of circling the wagons with Harry, turning her frustration right at him. Sources claim she's seeing him as the weak link, the one not holding things together, not managing the chaos the way their big ambitions require. It's that classic blame game where everything wrong gets laid at someone else's feet. And in this case, it's Harry bearing the brunt. People around them are reportedly afraid. She's overwhelmed, terrified that everything she sacrificed England for is slipping away. And rather than facing it head on, she's redirecting all that anger and fear inward toward the marriage. And honestly, when you look at how volatile things have seemed lately, with their schedules pulling them in opposite directions and more time spent apart than together, it adds up to a recipe for serious strain. These staff departures aren't happening in a vacuum either. Archewell has been described as erratic and volatile, hard to attract top talent to because of the intense environment. And with James Holt, someone who knew Harry from way back in his royal days, deciding London's calling him home, it hits different. His exit leaves the foundation with barely anyone left full-time, and Meredith Mayne's walking away as the 11th publicist. 11, that's not just bad luck. That's a pattern that raises eyebrows. Meghan's apparently beside herself, seeing these losses as proof that things are falling apart. And instead of looking at the bigger picture, she's zeroing in on Harry as the reason it's all going wrong. The sources are clear. She's in this mega-crisis state, humiliated by the recent flops and snubs, and taking it out on the one person who's supposed to be her partner in all this. It's heartbreaking in a way because you remember how they presented themselves when they first stepped away, full of hope, ready to conquer the world on their own terms. But now, with these key people jumping ship, it's like the cracks are too big to hide anymore. And the way Meghan's reportedly handling it, by playing this blame game with Harry, well, it's only making things worse. Insiders say people close to them are genuinely concerned, watching her spiral and wondering how much more the marriage can take when the professional side keeps delivering blow after blow. This feels like the moment where everything's teetering, where the frustration boils over into something that could change everything for them. And it's not just these latest exits that's got everyone raising eyebrows. It's the pattern, the endless revolving door at Archewell and with their personal team that makes you wonder why they can't seem to hold on to anyone for long. 11 publicists in a handful of years? That's not normal, even in the cutthroat world of Hollywood PR. Meredith Mayne's being the 11th feels like the cherry on top of a very unstable sundae, and James Holt's departure, after being one of the few who stuck around through thick and thin, just drives home how deep the issues run. People don't walk away from high-profile jobs like that without good reason, especially when they're tied to a couple who promised the world with their big independence move. And whisper it quietly, but those old stories from their palace days are bubbling up again. The ones about Meghan being a bit of a dictator in high heels, where staff allegedly ended up in tears after tough meetings or impossible demands. Those claims never really went away, did they? They were brushed off back then as misunderstandings or jealousy, but now with this constant turnover, it's hard not to connect the dots. Sources keep hinting at a toxic environment, one where expectations are sky high and the pressure is relentless, leaving even seasoned pros burned out and ready to bolt. You have to admit, Meghan does have this way about her, always pushing for perfection, always wanting things done her way, and when they don't, well, people seem to pay the price. It's that demanding nature that's followed her from acting days through the royal chapter, and now into this California life, and it's left a trail of fallout with friends, family, and now staff. Remember how those bullying allegations first surfaced right before the Oprah interview? Former aides talking about being reduced to tears, feeling bullied, the atmosphere being so intense that good people just couldn't stay. Kensington Palace even launched an investigation, though nothing much came of it publicly. But fast forward to now, and with Archewell looking more like a ghost town, those whispers are louder than ever. Insiders say it's not just about the work being hard, it's about the vibe, the feeling that nothing is ever quite good enough, And that frustration trickles down until someone decides they've had enough. And poor Harry, caught in the middle, probably trying to smooth things over while watching his wife's vision crumble bit by bit. All of this is fueled by the professional setbacks that just keep coming, one after another, like waves knocking down a sandcastle they spent years building. Take that Netflix lifestyle show. What was meant to be Meghan's big solo triumph, her chance to shine with cooking and hosting and all those curated moments of domestic bliss. It was hyped up for ages, delayed multiple times, and when it finally dropped, the backlash was brutal. Critics called it out of touch, overly polished to the point of being fake, and the viewership numbers apparently didn't live up to the massive deal they signed. Sources close to the production whispered about chaos behind the scenes, reshoots, disagreements, and in the end, it felt like another flop in a string of them. The Jam, the podcast that got canned after one season, the children's book that didn't exactly fly off shelves. It's like every venture they touch turns into this public humiliation. And don't get me started on the lost deals. Brands that were circling early on have quietly backed away, sensing the brand is in peril, toxic even. Archewell itself, once touted as this powerhouse foundation, is reportedly scaling back dramatically, donations not pouring in like they hoped, and now with Holt gone, it's hard to see how they rebound. These constant blows are hitting hard, and according to the insiders spilling to the tabs, it's driving Meghan to double down on blaming Harry. She's supposedly seeing him as the weak link in their so-called business empire, the one who isn't stepping up with the charisma or the connections to make it all work. Harry was meant to be the draw engine, the royal draw that opened doors, but lately he's been more withdrawn, less engaged in the day-to-day grind of their ventures. Meghan, with her ambitious drive, apparently resents that, feels like she's carrying the load while he's not fully committed to the fight. It's that public humiliation from the flops and the snubs that's making her lash out more, redirecting all the embarrassment and fear of failure right at him. You can imagine the arguments, her pointing out how things would be different if he managed better, if he leveraged his title more effectively, while he's just trying to keep the peace in a life that's already uprooted him so much. And then there's the emotional side of it all, the strain that's pulling them in different directions. Harry's been open in the past about missing home, missing the structure and the familiarity of England, and lately those feelings seem stronger than ever. He's been making more solo trips back, visits to see family, charity events without Meghan by his side. And each time the narrative grows that he's longing for that old life, feeling isolated in their Montecito bubble. California was supposed to be their fresh start. But for Harry, it's starting to look like exile. Friends, or what's left of them, say he's quieter these days, more reflective, while Meghan's focused on rebuilding the brand, pushing forward no matter what. They're living increasingly separate lives off camera, her networking in LA, launching new projects, him popping over to the UK more often, attending things alone. The priorities just don't align anymore, and with all the professional chaos, that emotional disconnect is widening. Harry's homesickness isn't new, but paired with Meghan's frustration and this blame game, it's creating cracks that feel impossible to patch. People around them notice how they're rarely photographed together spontaneously anymore, how events are carefully staged when they do appear as a couple. It's like the magic they sold the world on has faded, replaced by this quiet tension that's bubbling over into everything else. This whole mess, the staff fleeing, the old allegations resurfacing, the failed projects piling up, it's all feeding into a marriage that's under more pressure than ever. Meghan's pattern of people distancing themselves, whether it's staff, old Hollywood pals, or even high-profile names who used to be close, it's hard not to see how that demanding streak plays a role. And Harry, bless him, seems caught between wanting to support her dreams and yearning for something simpler back home. The personal toll is real. Those humiliations aren't just headlines. They're constant reminders that the empire isn't what they promised, and when one partner starts seeing the other as the problem, well, that's when things get really shaky. With all these layers piling on, the endless staff churn, those lingering whispers about her being tough to work for, the string of projects that just didn't land the way they hoped, it's no wonder the talk has shifted straight to whether their marriage can even survive it. Sources are painting a picture of a couple on the absolute brink, with brutal arguments behind closed doors that are getting more intense by the day, especially over Harry's growing desire to head back to the UK more often. It's like everything's coming to a head in 2026, this year that's supposed to be about rebuilding, but instead feels like the final straw. Insiders describe these fights as deeply emotional, raw stuff where old resentments bubble up. And they're not just about work anymore. They're about where they see their lives going, with Harry feeling pulled back to England and Meghan digging in her heels on staying put in California. And off camera, away from the staged appearances, they're apparently living more and more like strangers, with separate routines, separate trips, and this quiet divide that's widening into something that could snap. Take Harry's recent solo skiing trip up in Colorado that stirred up a whole new wave of rumors just last month. He was spotted hitting the slopes without Meghan, looking relaxed but alone, while she stayed back dealing with the fallout from her ongoing family drama. Especially that renewed mess with her estranged father, Thomas Markle, who's been spilling more stories to the press about feeling cut off. Sources said it was like Harry was escaping the tension at home, grabbing some time to himself amid all the chaos, but it only fueled the speculation that they're drifting apart. People close to them whispered that the trip was a sign of bigger issues, with Harry tiring of the Hollywood grind and Meghan facing the heat from her side of the family, which just adds more pressure to an already strained setup. Her estrangement from most of her relatives, except her mom, really, has always been this sore spot. But lately, it's been dragged back into the spotlight, making her feel even more isolated and defensive, which apparently spills over into how she handles things with Harry. And then there's the whole UK tug-of-war that's reportedly at the heart of so many of these blow-ups. Harry's been pushing for more visits back home, especially with his Invictus Games commitments ramping up. But the security headaches are a constant battle. He lost that big court case over protection last year, and now every trip means negotiating with the royals or footing massive bills themselves, which insiders say leads to heated arguments about whether it's worth the risk or the cost. Meghan's made it clear she's not keen on going back unless certain conditions are met, like full security guarantees or some kind of reconciliation that doesn't feel like groveling. But Harry's homesickness is real, and he's been vocal about missing his old life, his friends, even the structure of it all. Sources claim these disputes get deeply emotional, with Harry feeling torn between his family in the UK and his life here, and Meghan seeing it as him not fully committing to their new path. It's like they're at this impasse, and without some compromise, people around them are genuinely worried it could lead to a split before the year's out. Whispers are even circulating that Netflix is keeping an eye on all this, quietly positioning for potential post-divorce content, maybe separate deals or spin-offs that play off their individual stories, since their joint stuff hasn't exactly set the world on fire lately. The lifestyle show she did got panned for being too glossy and out of touch, and now with Archewell shrinking, it's like their brand as a power couple is fading. Add to that the high-profile friends who've reportedly distanced themselves, the Obamas not inviting them to big events anymore, the Clooneys keeping things polite but not close like before, and it's another layer of humiliation that's hitting Meghan hard. Those early Hollywood alliances seemed so solid when they first moved over, but now, with the flops and the drama, sources say even those circles are cooling off, leaving them more isolated than ever. And Meghan's family stuff just compounds it. Her half-sister Samantha's been out there with more exposés and live rants, dragging up old hidden family secrets that make everything feel even more unstable. Betting odds are shifting too, with bookies now putting the chances of a split by the end of 2026 at even money, or better in some places. Like Poe's 150 on them separating and Poe 300 on a full divorce. It's wild how the public's betting on their downfall, but it reflects all the insider chatter about how things are unraveling. At the core of it all is this blame game that's become the running theme. Sources keep saying Meghan won't take accountability for any of it, always pointing fingers elsewhere, especially at Harry for not holding the fort on their business side. She's got this pattern, they claim, of fallout with people, from staff to friends to family. And instead of reflecting, she redirects the frustration, which is eroding whatever foundation they had left from those early, hopeful days. Harry's trying to play peacemaker, but with his own pull toward home and the mounting failures, it's wearing thin. People around them say it's like watching a slow-motion crash where the professional hits bleed into the personal and the blame just keeps cycling without resolution. You can't help but speculate on what comes next if it all falls apart. What if Harry goes for that half-in, half-out thing with the royals he's always wanted? Maybe basing himself more in the UK for charity work, seeing the kids on a schedule, while Meghan pushes ahead with her solo branding. Maybe a memoir or more lifestyle ventures that play to her strengths without the royal baggage. Insiders hint he's got unfinished business back home, like mending fences with his brother or stepping up for his dad's health stuff, and that could be his way forward. For Meghan, it might mean reinventing herself fully in Hollywood, free from the joint scrutiny. Though with her demanding style and the trail of estrangements, it'd be an uphill climb. Either way, it's the kind of what if that keeps everyone hooked, wondering if 2026 is the year they call it quits or somehow pull through. But with the arguments escalating and the blame game in full swing, it's hard not to feel like we're on the edge of something big, something that could change the whole Sussex story forever.